Hi, and thanks for joining us on Facebook Live. My name is Lindsay Stevenson, and I'm here with Bill Sheridan, and we are at the AICPA Women's Global Leadership Summit here in New York, and have a lot of exciting topics today, but I'm really excited about what we get to talk about right now because I'm horrible at it, and I'm really hoping that Bill can help me with it. But we're going to talk about delegation. So Bill here is doing a session later today, so if any of you are here at the conference or you're logging in online, totally recommend going to it because I think we all need it. But I love the title, right? Lead and Let Go, which is so cool. So why don't you tell us just a little bit about the session overall? What are you going to talk about?
Well, delegation in a nutshell, and why it's important, why it's creating issues for us. I mean, I think a lot of us struggle with it, but we don't look at it as, a problem that can be solved. It's just kind of there, right? We're oh my gosh, what am I going to do with all this stuff that I have to do, and I don't have time to do it all, and we just kind of look at that as, the normal course of business. And that's not where we have to be. That's not where our organizations want us to be, right? For the greater good of our organizations, we need to be doing what Dan Sullivan would call the stuff that is our unique ability. So, and what this is, it's really kind of our sweet spot. It's the things that we're passionate about and that we are very, very good at. And for the greater good of our organizations, that's where we need to be spending most of our time. And yet we find ourselves doing a lot of stuff that doesn't fall into that category, right? It's all that extra work. And so we have to learn to delegate that stuff away so we're spending more of our time working within that unique ability, because that's where our organizations get the most bang for our buck.
I feel like you may have peeled open my brain and looked inside and been here's all the things that I struggle with and I'm afraid to actually do.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a little bit from a perspective. You said, operating in your sweet spot and being able to figure out how to delegate the things that don't fit in there. What about if you're an entrepreneur or you're entrepreneurial in your organization in some way? How do you do it if you don't have a team, right? If you don't have a whole group of people that you can just say, okay, you can do this for me, you can do this for me. What do we do?
That's a really it's a common question and a really tough one to answer, because the short answer is if you don't have somebody to delegate that stuff to, you can't delegate it, right? I mean, it's got to get done. You can't just stop doing the stuff and not do it. But what you've identified there is a problem that needs to be solved, right? And yes, it's a problem, but it's not necessarily a bad thing, because now we've identified what we have to do in order to elevate ourselves to that next level and do the work that will drive our organizations forward. Ultimately, it becomes a people problem. Right? If we don't have somebody to delegate it to, we've got to find somebody at some point. And it may not happen today or tomorrow or next week, but now we know what's going to get us to the next level is when we're able to solve that particular people problem, and then we can start delegating that stuff away and moving forward.
That totally makes sense. And most of us are list people, right? So if you get into CPAs and CGMAs, we love to make lists. So maybe just making a list of the things that you really don't want to be doing because they don't make sense with your sweet spots, so you know what kind of person you need to find. Because I think that's half the battle, right? When you own your own business or you're trying to build a team, you don't even know what you're interviewing for sometimes. You just bring people in. So I love that approach.
Really that's really the first step, is to take stock of how you're spending your time, right? Ultimately, this is a time issue, right? And I think it was John C. Maxwell says, and I'm paraphrasing here, I can't remember the exact quote, but successful people obsess about how they spend their time, right? And because that's the most precious commodity that we've got. So the first step really is to actually take stock of how we're spending our time, figuring out everything that we do over the course of a day or a week or a month or a quarter or whatever it might be. But how are we spending that time? And then compartmentalizing those tasks into, what is the stuff that falls within our sweet spot, what doesn't, and then we know this is the stuff that I've got to start working on delegating away so that I can spend more time doing this stuff.
That makes total sense, right? Is anyone else feeling like this makes total sense and it should be easy for us to understand this, but Bill has to tell us what we're supposed to be doing? I love it. It seems so normal. So you talked a little bit when you were saying the challenges. So what are the main barriers to being able to delegate, right? It's great to say, I'm going to so delegate, but really, like, what am I going to run into when I try and do it?
Yeah, well, one you just mentioned is the people issue. What if you don't have a good person to delegate that stuff to? So that's a key one, and that's a tough one to figure out. Another issue is just what I call mind trash, right? It's us talking ourselves into not delegating things, right? I mean, and think about people call them reasons why they can't delegate. I call them excuses why they're not delegating. You know, it's things like, it takes too much time for me to train somebody to do that. It's just easier for me if I do it myself. Or, you know, it's things along those lines. It's a mindset where somehow I kind of equate it to the reason why people don't take vacations, right? How are they ever going to survive without me? I'm not there to do my job. It's you know, it's that type of mentality. It's you know, don't flatter yourself so much, and understand that it's okay to let go of this stuff and let somebody else do it for a couple of reasons. It frees you up, and it helps them grow at the same time, you know, if you can do that. So I think we've somehow talked ourselves into believing that we're the only people who can do this stuff and do it well, and that's just not true.
So basically the value proposition is that you aren't the only one.
Right.
But if you're operating in your sweet spot, then other people are allowed to also do that, and the whole team moves forward.
Yep.
So one, I'm super excited right now because I'm just thinking, like, delegation. When you hear the word, right, it's almost like a chore.
Right.
Like at least in my career, I've been like, somebody says delegate it, and I'm like, they aren't going to do it as well as me, or oh my gosh, you think I can't do it well anymore, or whatever, you know, the story is. But being able for you to transition that into a leadership skill set, like, just kind of blew my mind a little bit there, of like, a good leader actually delegates not only because it frees them up, because they develop the people around them. Like, I might actually cry a little bit because I'm really excited about, like, I can feel good about delegating instead of feeling like crap that I delegated something that I don't like, because someone else might love it.
You're absolutely right. I mean, you hear that all the time. Good leaders are the people who develop further leaders, right? Other leaders behind them, and that's absolutely a step in it is turning stuff over to them and letting them go for it. I mean, I think it was Dan Pink who said that one of the three things that really drives engagement at work is autonomy. It's that notion that that I can do my work without anybody looking over my shoulder and do it my way. So if we train people how to do it, let them go and do it, and then just get out of their way, the amazing things will happen, and they'll grow as a result. So I think you're absolutely right. It is a leadership skill.
My mind is seriously blown right now. Okay, so I entered the discussion thinking I was going to have this checklist of things I need to do better because I suck at delegating, and right now I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be a great leader when I figure this out. So I really appreciate all of that you shared.
My pleasure.
So if you're online, if you are here at the conference and you're watching this, make it to Bill's session, because you're going to learn way more than what we just covered. And Bill, before we leave today, what's sort of the one thing, if somebody's walking out of your session and they're saying, like, this was the most important thing, what one or two things are most important to you when you share this with people?
Wow. As John C. Maxwell said, be aggressive about knowing how you're spending your time. That's number one. Just every day track what you're doing and when and why, because that time is more precious than you know. Number two is your people, right? It ultimately comes down to people, and surrounding yourself with the right people with the right skill sets who can take the stuff on. So it's a time issue, it's a people issue, and if we get those two things right, most of it will just fall into place.
That sounds awesome. I don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely going to be in Bill's session. I can't tell you how grateful we are to have you here today, and super excited for the rest of the conference.
Looking forward to it. Thanks,
Thank
Lindsay.
you.
Yep.